timestamps, if I remember, should be in the description down below, so be sure to go and give the authors some love. And let's get into it. Our first story is titled, "There's an Extra Hand in My Kids' Photos." I paid to get professional photos done of my kids. They follow some weird variant of the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. Only one of them is ever smiling at once. I thought maybe it was time to bring a professional in and stop having to Photoshop different heads on the kids for their Christmas cards. Everything was fine. We had a nice outdoor session at the edge of the woods. My son and daughter hugged each other, smiled, posed, the works. Everything was fine until I got the photos back. As I looked at them, I noticed something. "Hey Frank," I said, "doesn't it look like there are two hands there?" He leaned over the computer. "Well, yeah, that one's Isabella's and that one's Jack's." "No, Jack's hand is over there," I pointed out. "He didn't put his arm around her, he refused, remember?" But it was obvious. Isabella was putting her hand up to her shoulder, and there was a hand underneath her hand, even though Jack's hand was clearly hanging at his side. "I guess she made a mistake," Frank continued. "She was probably trying to Jack's hand around Isabella, but then forgot to Photoshop his own hand out." I frowned. "I wish she told us before she did that. It looks kind of weird." The hand under my daughter's didn't really look like a child hand at all. It was too big. Just where was this woman getting her stock images? I continued flipping through the album. I stopped to linger on a photo where Jack had, finally, wrapped his arms around Isabella. She wrapped her arms around him too, and they were both looking at the camera. Perfect picture. Except there was an extra hand on top of Jack's. Just two fingers laying over his. I wouldn't have even noticed if I hadn't seen the first hand. I called Frank over again. He began to laugh. "Well, I guess she's using AI. I don't think so," I said. "I mean, those are Isabella and Jack. How would AI make that?" "No, there are things with AI now, where you can upload a photo and tell it to do things, like make it a LinkedIn picture or remove a background, and it often changes things even when you tell it not to." "That's a big privacy violation," I said, my heart starting to pound. "I don't want their pictures in the system." I called her up. I probably should have given her the benefit of the doubt, but I was so angry by that point that I just started yelling. "You have no right to upload our photos into some AI," I told her. She sounded near the point of tears. "I didn't do it, I swear. Please don't write a review." Then she paused. "Wait, I'll prove it to you." The photographer Janice came over an hour later. She showed us the original files on the computer and their metadata. She showed them on her camera screen. In the originals, I saw the extra hand under Isabella's and the extra fingers over Jack's. She could be faking it, but she seemed so sincere. When Janice left, I felt even more confused. I flipped through the photos again, staring at the extra hands. They had to be AI, they had to. We finally put the kids to sleep. Frank and I relaxed in front of the TV. "It's just so weird," I said, unable to let it go. as usual, sprawled across her bed in a chaotic fashion, her hand hanging over the edge of the bed. Coming up from under the bed, there was another hand holding hers. I screamed and flicked on the light. There was nothing there. Frank came running. I told him about it and he burst out laughing. "You're going to start having nightmares about these things," he chuckled, as he got on his knees and checked under the bed, then the closet, then Jack's closet and bed. There was nothing there, of course. Nothing at all. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept checking on the kids. I kept thinking about hands. Hands attached to emaciated corpses hiding under beds. Hands attached to serial killers breaking into homes. Hands attached to nothing at all, scurrying across the carpet like spiders. I finally fell asleep, but I woke up with a start at 3 a.m. As I shook off the fog of sleep, the first thing I noticed was that Frank was holding my hand, something he never did while we slept. I turned over back and forth, and it took me a second to realise that the hand attached to mine wasn't attached to Frank at all. I screamed, and the thing seemed to disappear in the shadows of the covers. We checked everywhere, everything. There was nothing in our room, nothing in the house. But my own hand was pulsing with pain, and 5 bright red scratches were across the palm, bleeding. "I can't do this," I sobbed. "I can't." My hand felt tingly and weird and numb. As we waited for police to show up, I flipped to my phone and looked at all the security cameras. No one had entered or exited. There was nothing there, except I noticed the footage at our front door from the previous day, when the 4 of us had gotten home from the park. There was a hand on my shoulder, but Frank didn't have his arm around me. Yeah, that's creepy. Very creepy. Someone said, "Gotta hand it to you. This is creepy AF." I mean, it's a shame that the hand left some pain, because I was gonna say it's just looking for a bit of affection, a bit of TLC. It's not really doing any harm, but the bleeding would prove otherwise. But yeah, that was creepy. So that was. There's an extra hand in my kids' photos by Blair Daniels. Our next story is titled, "My friend showed me a new dating app for lonely people. There are some very strange rules in the terms and conditions." And this is written by Orange PLR. "I don't get it. I swirled my straw around in my iced pecan latte. Not the manliest drink choice, but Amaya had turned me on to them. And no, I couldn't go back to whatever I'd ordered before. I would never be the same." "Yeah, Josh," Amaya chimed in, leaning back in her chair almost precariously, the front legs tilting off the ground. "Me neither. It looks like Grindr." I snorted. "It does kind of look like Grindr." "How would you even know that, Cooper?" "I mean, I've seen what Grindr looks like. Have you never seen what Grindr looks like?" My head whipped between them, searching for understanding in Josh's face and sympathy in Amaya's. I only found laughter. I crossed my arms and sulked. "Guys, I know it's weird," Josh finally continued. He pinched his baseball cap by the bill and spun it around so it was backwards, leaning forward and holding out his phone for us to look at. Doing that was almost a nervous tic for him. It had to be 50 times a day that he rotated his hat like that when he was wearing one. just to rotate it back again. Sometimes I joke that he was going to make his hair curly like that. I don't even know who made this. Jackson said they found it on the dark web or something. Your cousin Jackson? You're not really falling for that, are you? Amaya smirked at him, leaning on her elbows and chewing on her straw. He's definitely messing with you. He just glared at her and kept going. Some people think it's like promotion for a movie or something. Some people think the people on here are dead. Dead like ghosts or something. He shrugged loosely, his face blank. Dunno, there's lots of theories. They could also just be bots or something. So what's the point of using this? I chimed in, slurping loudly at the last hints of liquid in my cup. I got a couple dirty looks from some old ladies at the table next to us and I smiled apologetically. You're just making it sound sketchy. Josh grinned, coming alive. He rotated his hat again and leaned in closer, like he was going to tell us a juicy secret. Amaya and I glanced at each other. People are finding love, apparently, he whisper-yelled. Like, on the app, with the ghosts/bots. He shook his head. No, not exactly. I think the point of the app is that it figures out your type or something, and then you just find someone exactly like that. They're drawn to you or something. So now this is some tarot card universe soulmate BS. Amaya always joked like this, but I could tell she was getting legitimately a little frustrated with him. I didn't blame her. Her emotions had been all over the place lately since she and Sean broke up. I felt guilty for feeling a little relieved they finally ended it, considering it meant she had more time to hang out with us, because I knew she was having a horrible time with it. They'd been together 2 years. Things like that were a big deal. I, on the other hand, hadn't had a girlfriend in years. I hadn't even been on a date in longer than I wanted to admit, and even if I could get a date, I didn't think I'd know what to do with the opportunity. I thought college would be a constant party where I was meeting girls left and right, but so far I'd been sorely mistaken. I couldn't lie. What Josh was saying sounded appealing in theory. If it was real, that was, which it wasn't. Listen, Josh said, offering her a crooked smile. I know it sounds insane. It definitely is insane. I haven't even gotten to the weirdest part yet. What's the weirdest part then, Josh? She brushed some dark brown curls away from her eyes, scowling at her own iced latte. Spit it out. Check this out. He held out his phone again, and Amaya and I both leaned in to look. It was the same screen he'd shown us before, the one that looked a little bit like Grindr with a black background, and the only thing on the page were a list of open chats. He tapped on a little question mark in the top right corner, and that was when the terms and conditions popped up. So, the terms and conditions. Number 1. If someone messages you that you would like to speak with, you must reply within 10 minutes of receiving the message. Number 2. If you do not wish to speak to someone, you must repeat this phrase word for word. Thank you for your interest, but I am not open at this time. I wish you good luck with finding what you want. Number 3. If you wish to stop speaking to someone, repeat the phrase above. Number 4. If someone continues messaging you after you have sent the phrase above, get high ground, lock all doors and windows, and contact customer support immediately. Delete the app. Do not re-download the app. Number 6, always say goodnight before you go to sleep. Number 7, always say good morning as soon as you wake up. 8, always be polite. 9, do not send more than one message at a time. 10, do not offer them anything to eat. 11, do not agree to meet up with anyone on the app. Do not tell them where you are, even if they say they already know. Do not invite them into your home. 12, if they are near your home, get to high ground, lock all doors and windows, and contact customer support immediately. Delete the app. Do not re-download the app. 13, do not let them trick you. They will try. And 14, we are not responsible for any negative consequences of using the app. Amaya and I just stared at the page for a long time, both of our eyes skimming over the words once, twice, 3 times. Finally, Amaya leaned back, rubbing at her face with the palm of her hand. This has to be a joke. Josh shrugged, setting his phone down. It's crazy, I know. Did you agree to all of that? I asked him. I felt a little uneasy, my stomach churning. The pecan latte wasn't sitting well anymore. Have you been using this? He shrugged again, now looking a little bit embarrassed. Listen, I know it sounds insane, but it's just for fun. I just want to see if it's real. Jackson met this girl like a week after using the app for the first time. And I met her and she's really normal and nice. I find that hard to believe. Amaya's face was red and she kept nervously tucking her hair behind her ears. Look, if you're messing with me, like if you're both in on this, this is a really shitty prank to pull on me right now. No, both Josh and I cried out at the same time, getting a couple more weird looks. No, Amaya, it's not a prank. Josh finished, I promise. It's just something weird I found and I wanted to tell you guys about it. Whatever, she huffed, pushing to her feet and slinging her bag over her shoulder. Just whatever. I don't feel good. I'll talk to you guys later. Amaya. I trailed off as she slammed her half-empty coffee cup into the trash and briskly strode toward the door. Josh and I shared a look. Dude, I swear I wasn't trying to mess with her, he said after a while, searching my face to gauge my belief in him. I nodded, wiping my sweaty palms off on my jeans. I know, it's okay. She just isn't doing well right now. I hesitated for a long moment, chewing on my bottom lip before I spoke again. Jackson really met someone. I downloaded the app that night. I wasn't proud of it, but my curiosity became stronger than my uneasiness. And, as embarrassing as it was to admit, I was getting desperate. I just wanted someone. I wanted to meet someone nice and pretty that I could go places with, and I wasn't having luck anywhere else. I considered it a win-win. If the app was just a prank, then we could get a good laugh out of it. And if it wasn't, that meant it was real. Josh had sent the link to our group chat with Amaya, and she immediately responded by reacting to the message with a thumbs down. That meant that even if she was still a little peeved, at the very least she wasn't upset anymore. It was a good sign. I pressed on the link and then agreed to download, crossing my fingers and praying for no horrible virus. The app really was incredibly bare bones. Nothing but a messaging screen, which was empty so far in my case. There wasn't anything else to look at, other than the T's and C's, which I read again. No one to swipe on, no bios to read, nothing. I was brushing my teeth when I got my first message. My phone buzzed and I nearly choked on my toothpaste when I read the notification. Noel. Hello, handsome. reason the smiley emoticon at the end unnerved me. I checked the time, 11:30 p.m, so I was fine on that rule. I pressed on the message and her profile popped up. There was no bio, just a name and a picture to look at. I studied it closely, my eyebrows cinching together. The picture was of a girl, looking definitely somewhere close to my age. She had shoulder-length curly hair and dark skin, and she was posing in a yellow field, wearing a flowery dress. It looked normal to me at first, but the closer I looked, the more off it felt. Her smile looked stiff, almost like it was painted on, and something about her eyes wasn't quite right. Her pupils looked strange, but I couldn't put my finger on exactly how. Something about that picture filled me with a sense of dread that I couldn't fully place either. I panicked and checked the T's and C's again before composing my message before the 10 minutes could pass, just in case. Thank you for your interest, but I am not open at this time. I wish you luck in finding what you want. I waited. 3 little typing bubbles popped up, and then they disappeared. 5 minutes passed, then 10. I sighed in relief and shut my phone off. I woke up to 2 more messages from other women. One was named Alyssa and the other one Jodie. My heart began to race. They had messaged me during the night, so it had been 10 minutes before I replied right. The words scrolled across the backs of my eyes like subtitles. You must reply within 10 minutes of receiving the message. Had I broken that rule? But then again, I wasn't supposed to message back at night, so surely it didn't count. I typed my responses, not bothering to look too closely at their profiles just yet. Not wanting to psych myself out. Alyssa, hi. Cooper, hi, good morning. Jodie, hello, how are you today? Cooper, hello, good morning, I'm doing well, how are you? I tried to match their energy. I made sure to be polite, and I also made sure to say good morning. I couldn't get my heart rate to slow down while I got ready for work, and I couldn't get over the dread I'd felt when I thought I might have broken the rule. I knew it probably wasn't real, but what if it was? What would happen to me if I didn't follow the terms and conditions? At work, I got in trouble more than once for checking my phone between waiting tables. I couldn't help it. Even if it was a stupid joke, I didn't want to find out. I only got one message from someone new, someone named Sunny, and I got it after 8 minutes had already passed since it was sent. I was anxious and restless all day, all the way until it was nearly midnight when I could finally relax a little. The other girls had messaged me a couple of times throughout the day, and I'd replied politely, asking them questions about things they like to do and places they like to go. Everything seemed fairly average, besides the very slight hint of stiffness in the way they talked, and the strange qualities about all of their profile pictures. Maybe they really were just well-trained bots. The thought made me feel a little better. They probably weren't even real. The only thing out of the ordinary was one message from Alyssa. Would you want to take me out to dinner some night this week? Get something to eat. Of course, in normal circumstances, this wouldn't have been a strange thing to say at all, but I remembered it at the last second. Do not offer them anything to eat. I told her I was extra busy that week and I just wanted to get to know her first. She had typed for a long time before responding with okay with a smiley face. Before it could get to midnight, I sent my goodnights and let out a long, shaky breath. must have been on his nightly run. I had tried telling him it was crazy to go on runs in the middle of the night, and so had Amaya, but he didn't listen. He was a white, straight, mostly muscular man. He had nothing to be scared of. He was invincible. This app is stressful, dude. I lay back in my bed, closing my eyes. It's taking a lot out of me. I heard Josh laugh on the other end, slightly choppy and still breathless. Don't take it too seriously. Like I was saying, it definitely could be some kind of movie promotion or something. Also, you get used to it. I have. Yeah, I trailed off. Have you talked to Amaya? A little. Why? I'm just worried about her. She's been so out of it lately. Yeah, we should do something for her, man, like plan something. I couldn't help but smile. The three of us had been inseparable since freshman orientation, when we had been put in a group. I had thought that it wouldn't last, that it would just be a case of freshman friend group, but it had. I felt lucky to have found both of them in such a big school, in such a big area. Yeah, we should. Let's hang out tomorrow. Sure thing. I went to bed that night feeling a little bit better, and a little less anxious. I woke up to tons of messages. A couple of new ones, but mostly pages of ones from the girls I'd already spoken to. Alyssa, Cooper. Alyssa, don't go to bed, talk to me, Cooper. I miss you. Can I come over? I'm moving soon, could you help me move? You can make me dinner. Cooper, wake up. I'm all alone, and I'm cold. It's so cold. I shivered. I didn't even bother reading through the other messages. Just responded with a good morning and apologised for not responding the night before. I wasn't sure this app was for me. The next few days went by without much of a hitch. The girls on the app were creepy, but they seemed harmless, and I was careful to follow all of the rules. I kept telling myself, even if these girls freak me out, they weren't even the ones I would end up with. If this app worked, I would meet someone who was perfect for me very, very soon, and then I could delete it and forget about it forever. I would give it another week or so, then I was going to give up. That was until Josh came into my job on a Wednesday. I saw him waiting outside the break room, his face pointed down, wringing his hands anxiously. The first thing I noticed was that he had no hat on. The second thing was that he was crying. What's wrong? I asked him, frowning and looking him over. Is everything okay, dude? He shook his head. Finally looking up and meeting my eyes, I saw horror in them and some other emotion that I hadn't seen from him maybe ever. Amaya is missing. Cooper, she's gone. One thought struck me all at once. The first stupid thought I had. Did she download it too? Everything after that felt like a huge grey blur. My manager gave me the day off work and I went with Josh, following him to the police station. I sat in their grey room. I answered their questions. I tried not to cry when they told me that her roommate had reported her missing, after she hadn't been seen for over 24 hours. I tried not to panic when they told me her roommate also found the window broken that morning and some blood staining the carpet. But there was no body down on the ground, no other traces of anything. I felt so guilty. I should have texted her more. I should have been calling and checking in on her. I had just been so distracted by work and by the stupid app. The only thing keeping us from ruling it's a suicide is the lack of a body, a female cop told me, clearly trying to be gentle. She placed a hand on my arm. Her roommate tells her she was going through a breakup. I felt myself filled with painful, searing rage. Amaya wouldn't do that. I looked the cop in the eyes, trying to make the eye contact burn, I promise. I could tell she didn't believe me. I stayed over at Josh's place. We both shuffled around like zombies, basically communicating only through either grunts of acknowledgement or shaky, quiet conversations about any updates. There were none to talk about. I completely forgot about the app. I forgot about it until about a week after she disappeared. My phone had been buzzing non-stop the entire week, but most of the time I had it entirely shut off. Some of my messages had been from my family, Amaya's family, and our classmates and friends, and some had been from the stupid app, but I couldn't bring myself to reply to many of them at all. But then I got a notification that caught my eye. Amaya. Hi, Cooper. It took me longer than I would like to admit to realise what I was looking at. At first I thought it was a text message and my heart soared up into my throat. Then I realised it was the app. When I opened it up, I was bombarded with messages, both from new people and old ones. The old fear I'd felt about the app began to resurface, bubbling up like bile. Alyssa, Cooper, I'm coming over. I can come over now. I know where you are. Can I come over? Answer me, Cooper, I'm going to come over. Jody, meet me. Please meet me. Please meet me. Now. Now. Sunny says cold. I ignored all of them, despite the horrible, sick feeling in my gut. I opened the one from Amaya. I looked at her profile picture. It was her. It was a picture of her I'd never seen before. It was dark outside and taken with flash. Her hair was down, falling around her face in the way that she couldn't stand. Her chin tilted a little to the side. She was smiling in the way the first girl was. Wrong. Stiff and strange and wrong. That wasn't her smile and those weren't her eyes. They were far too dull, and very slightly pointing in different directions. Amaya, is that really you? Are you okay? The three bubbles popped up, then disappeared, then popped up again. I stood up, beginning to pace. Should I call Josh? Should I call the police? Was this some sort of sick joke? Finally my phone buzzed. I am near your home. I started to cry. I couldn't help it. I wanted to throw my phone. I wanted to break it. Cooper, where are you? What happened to you? Amaya, 10 feet. I stared at the message. I felt like my vision was going out. Cooper, 10 feet from where? Amaya, it's cold here. I swallowed hard. It felt like swallowing rocks. Cooper, thank you for your interest, but I am not open at this time. I wish you luck in finding what you want. Amaya, 6 feet, cold, and dark. I knew what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to lock the doors and the windows, get to high ground and call customer support, but I couldn't. All I could do was stare at my phone, at her messages, frozen like a deer in the headlights, and the headlights were coming so fast, I couldn't see or breathe or think. She was typing again. As my phone burst, my blood ran completely cold. It was 1:56 a.m. No one was there. No one but me and whatever it was. I wasn't even sure if I could stop shaking enough to call the police. And I definitely couldn't hide. Not then. And I had broken nearly all of the rules. Amaya, let me in, Cooper. I have to show you where it took me. I finally managed to hide. I'm hiding now in my attic. I can hear it itself from room to room. My phone is going to die and none of my calls will go through. But I had to write this down. I had to tell someone. Josh, if you read this, I hope you're okay. I hope you followed the rules. I don't know where Amaya is, but that's not Amaya. And if you see me again, I'm not sure it'll be me either. I'm sorry. It's typing again. I've broken one last rule. I didn't delete the app. Wish me luck. Damn. I feel like that would make an excellent horror movie. I mean, it kind of... What's that that movie? I mean, it's not really like this, but when you download the app and it tells you when you're gonna die, it kind of felt a little bit like that, but yeah, that was really good. Story number 3 is brought to us by La Ofrenda. It's titled, I work at an ice rink. I saw something that chilled me to the bone. I know I should be grateful for a chill job at an ice rink, especially as we gear up for a scorching summer. I'm thinking about quitting though. I'm too creeped out to go back there. I needed a summer job, and I was a little surprised by the lack of competition for a gig at the local rink. My first day was right after the interview. The pay wasn't great, but the expectations weren't bad either. Help customers, keep the place clean, restock the restrooms, that sort of work. The most important task was a team effort. Keep the rink temperature below freezing at all times. That made sense. It's an ice rink, not a swimming pool. At regular intervals, I check the thermostat to make sure the rink remained between 19 and 29 degrees. Doing so ensured that the main room was always nice and chilly, my own frosty oasis in the middle of town. My boss was the face of the business, so he was usually up front serving guests or back in his office. Whenever he came out, he'd check the rink's temperature even if I had just checked it myself. One day I clocked in a few minutes late and found the boss hustling toward the thermostat. He seemed startled when he noticed me. Seen anybody around here yet? He asked. I checked the clock to see that we were still nearly an hour away from opening. Not yet, I smiled. I said, good, he smiled. Then he asked me to help set up a new game in the arcade. It was a massive cabinet, big screen, 2-seater bench, huge speakers. The delivery men rolled it in and moved it into place, so now it was time to plug it in and see how it ran. I plugged in the power cord and fired up the cabinet. The screen flickered, the speakers roared to life, and then the whole place went dark. I looked out into the main room to see the boss sprinting for the breaker box. The girl at the concession counter dropped what she was doing and disappeared into the kitchen. I left the arcade to apologise for the mishap, and then I noticed the smell. It was like someone left meat out and went on vacation. The stench was heavy and sickening, so strong I could taste it. I figured it must have come from the kitchen. My boss was in the back, sweating bullets at the breaker box. The wiring's screwy, he said when he saw me. One thing goes wrong and the whole place loses power. He snapped a few switches back into place and closed the box. Behind us, machines hummed again. He sighed and wiped the sweat from his forehead. It's just an old building, that's all. He checked the thermostat and stayed by the rink until it was time to open. The smell had mostly dissipated by the time customers started filtering in, but it was hard to forget. It was still in my clothes when I got home. A few days later, the boss had to run errands, leaving me and the concession girl to hold down the fort. Everything seemed fine at first, but then a group of kids approached me from the arcade. They said the new cabinet wasn't working right. The screen kept freezing and they couldn't get their quarters back. My boss had briefly showed me how to troubleshoot those machines, so I did what I could to diagnose the problem. It took longer than I'd like to admit. I was hesitant to unplug the game and restart it, but I tried everything I could to get the game working again. If I had to refund a few quarters, I imagined the boss wouldn't mind. At some point I realised I was sweating. I dressed warm for work since the main room stays in the mid-50s, but I suddenly felt too hot. I told the kids I'd be right back and tried not to look conspicuous as I made my way to the rink thermostat. 30 degrees. Still below freezing. I returned to the arcade to realise that it was the air conditioner that was struggling. It was blazing hot outside, and our AC was fighting hard to keep the room cool. I finally got the game up and running, then ran by the concession counter for lunch. The late afternoon rush kicked in, and I was on my feet for hours. Without the boss up front, I was renting out skates, checking the restrooms, and doing my best to keep the new arcade game running. I didn't get a moment to catch my breath until closing time. I shut off the lights and flipped the front door sign from open to closed, then realised it had been hours since I checked the rink thermostat. I knew I had to take a look before I left for the night. 35 degrees. Not great, not terrible. I adjusted the target temperature and waited until the system started pumping more coolant beneath the ice. I headed back to the door, but stopped at the hallway to the restrooms. There was someone standing at the end of the hall. I was startled, but more than anything I just wanted to go home. "We're closed," I said. "I have to lock up now." He didn't move. "Do you need to use the restroom first?" I thought maybe he wasn't feeling well. Concession food can be rough on some people's stomach. He turned to face me. The hall was dark except for the exit light over my head, which cast a dim red glow over his face. His head hung low and he wore a vacant expression, like he was asleep on his feet. Then he lifted his head to look at me. I didn't say a word. The more I stared, the more the features of his face seemed to be out of place, like it was just a mask. His eyes looked cloudy in the red light, but I could tell that he was looking at me. Then an intense shiver came over me. It was an ice cold chill that pierced me to my core. It had to be fear, but I wrapped my arms close to warm up. Then he was gone. I looked behind me, then back down the hall. There was no one there. I didn't stick around to check the restrooms. I got out of there as soon as I could. The next day, I told my boss about the man in the hall. He listened quietly and took a while before speaking. "What did he look like?" he asked. I described the lifeless face and the dull eyes, feeling a hint of a chill just recalling it. And he was dressed a little outdated. I thought about it. The man wore a suit, but maybe the lapels were a little too big. The pants flared a bit wide. That wasn't what concerned me at the time, though. Maybe so. My boss nodded. "Did the ice rink go above freezing yesterday?" "It did," I said, "but I fixed it before leaving last night." "We've got to keep an eye on it," he said. Then he left for his office. "You'll see people like that around here. It'll be okay, just keep an eye on the rink." I looked over to the concession counter. My co-worker had been listening. She only met my eyes for a second, then she went about her work. We'd be opening soon and the heat was sure to drive a crowd our way. It's a brutal summer, and when the temperatures rise so high, everyone blasts their AC. It puts a serious strain on the power grid. Yesterday we dipped the meter too far. The power went out across town. My boss went out to fire up the generator, telling me to make sure nobody went near the ice. At first, customers sat in the dining area and waited to see if the power would return. I couldn't blame them. The air was still cool, and anything was better than going back out into the heat. As the day went on though, the chill faded and there was no point in sticking around. Our customers left and it was just me and my co-worker. Our boss clearly wasn't going to get the generator up and running anytime soon, so I hoped that he would just let us go. My co-worker went outside to ask. The air was starting to turn muggy, so I went to check the thermostat. It had a backup battery so I could at least see the rink's temperature. 40 degrees. It was only going to climb from there. With my back to the ice, I felt something move just behind me. The stench of spoiled meat returned, thick in the humid air. My legs quivered, but I ran for the door. I was in a hurry, so I decided to cut through the ice rink. That was a stupid idea. I started slipping immediately and fell hard on my back. I looked up into a crowd of dead faces. There were dozens of them, dead, bloody bodies, all standing on the ice. Their faces were frozen in horrified, silent howls, while some looked as if they had been beaten or crushed. They all watched me with pale, cloudy eyes. I heard myself scream and I scrambled for footing. I fell again and again, trying to crawl across the ice. Finally I reached the other side and bolted to the exit. As I pushed through the doors, I could see that my co-worker's car was gone. She had the right idea. I didn't stop to look up. I took today off and called my boss to tell him what happened. He didn't seem to question any of it, and he knew what was going on, so I asked for an explanation. "You know the gravel lot down the street?" he asked. "There used to be an office building there. It collapsed years ago when I was just a kid. A lot of people died." I'd never heard the whole story before. Apparently there were so many casualties the local morgue was overwhelmed. They had to store bodies at the ice rink to keep them cool. They were there on the ice for days until they could be moved or identified. Now I understand what I saw, but that doesn't make it any better. I don't want to go to work tomorrow. Pretty good. Not quite as creepy the other ones, in my opinion. I mean, the owner could make a lot of money around Halloween time, just crank it up to 30 degrees and happy days. Our fourth and final story is: a man gave me his old family videos. After watching them, I understand why he was so desperate to get rid of them. And this is written by Kamal Frank. "My job is trash. I don't mean that in a metaphorical, I hate my career kind of way. I mean it literally. I'm a garbage collector. My alarm goes off at 4 AM. I pull on steel-toed boots and I spend the next 8 hours heaving the things people don't want anymore into the back of a growling truck. It's a dirty, smelly, physically demanding job, but it pays the bills for my tiny apartment. And it's honest work. You also learn a lot about people from what they throw away. Most Most of the time it's just bags of household garbage, but sometimes you find treasures. A broken piece of furniture that can be fixed, a box of old books. People get rid of the strangest things. My rule is that if it's in a box and set out separately, it's fair game to take a look. That's how I ended up with the tapes. It happened a few weeks ago. I was on my usual route going through a quiet older suburban neighbourhood. One of the residents, a man probably in his late 20s, flagged me down. He looked awful. His eyes were wide and bloodshot, with dark bruise-looking circles under them, like he hadn't slept in a month. His hands were trembling. "Hey," he said, his voice a hoarse whisper. "You're the garbage guy, right? Can you just take this for me? Just get it out of my house, please." He shoved a heavy cardboard box into my hands. It was sealed with a single hasty strip of packing tape. "Sure thing, man," I said. "Just leave it on the curb next time." "No," he said, his eyes darting around nervously. "I need it gone. Now." He didn't wait for a reply. He just turned and practically ran back into his house, slamming the door behind him. I shrugged, tossed the box into the cab of my truck to look through later, and continued my route. That night back in my apartment, I finally opened the box. It was heavy. Inside, packed neatly, were at least 50 old home video cassettes, the kind we all used in the 90s. Big, clunky black rectangles. None of them had labels and were completely anonymous. I'm not gonna lie, my first thought was a little voyeuristic. Who knew what could be on these? Maybe something weird, something interesting. It was a window into a stranger's life. Anything was better than the usual mind-numbing cable TV. I had an old VCR TV combo I'd picked up from a thrift store, so I pulled it out, blew the dust off it, and popped in the first tape. The screen flickered to life with a burst of static, then resolved into a shaky, oversaturated home video. It was a kid's birthday party. A backyard, a bunch of screaming children, a cake with cartoon characters on it. The timestamp in the corner said 1998. Watching it, I got a strange sense of second-hand nostalgia. The clothes, the music, the quality of the video itself. It was a time capsule. And I recognised one of the kids. A small, skinny boy with a goofy grin. It was the man who had given me the box. The next few tapes were more of the same. Christmas mornings with mountains of discarded wrapping paper. Awkward family vacations to the beach. The camera panning shakily across sunburned faces. I watched him grow up on those tapes. From a little kid to a gawky teenager. It was strangely intimate, watching these moments that were never meant for my eyes. It was also normal, boring even. I was about to give up and just toss the whole box. That's when I put in the tape of the barbecue. The timestamp said July 2002. The scene was familiar. A sunny backyard, adults drinking beer, kids running through a sprinkler. The man from the tapes, now a teenager, was trying to flip burgers on a grill, clearly failing. It was another slice of mundane life. I was half watching, half scrolling on my phone. And then the video glitched. The screen dissolved into a brief, violent snowstorm of static, a loud bzzzt coming through the speakers. It lasted only a second. When the picture returned, the scene was the same. The burgers were still burning, the kids were still screaming. But something was different. In the background, hanging from the thick branches of a large oak tree, there was a shadow. It wasn't there before the glitch. I rewound the tape, watched it again, normal seam, psst, glitch, and there it was. It was a dark, amorphous shape, like a smudge on the lens, but it had a distinct unsettling form. It looked tentacled, like a squid or an octopus made of pure darkness, just dangling there among the leaves. I leaned closer to the screen, my heart beating a little faster. It was probably nothing, a film artifact, a bit of the tape degrading in a weird way. That had to be it. I shook my head, dismissing the creepy feeling crawling up my spine, and let the tape play out. The shadow never moved. It was just there, a silent, impossible observer in a happy family memory. I put in the next tape, a Christmas morning from 2004. The family was in their living room opening presents. The teenage boy, the man, was showing off a new video game console. It was all laughter and joy. I was watching intently now, waiting. Psst. The glitch, the static, the picture returned, and my blood ran cold. It was there again, the thing, but it wasn't on a tree in the background anymore. It was in the house. For a few frames, just a fraction of a second, I saw it standing in the dark hallway that led out of the living rooms. It was clearer this time. It had depth, a three-dimensional quality. It wasn't a flat shadow, it was a thing. A tall, spindly, dark thing, with what looked like long, thin limbs that coiled and shifted like they had no bones. It was just standing there, in the shadows of the hallway, watching the family celebrate. I rewound it, playing it in slow motion. Before the glitch, the hallway was empty. After the glitch, the creature was there. It wasn't part of the original recording. The glitch wasn't revealing something that was already there. The glitch was adding it. It was inserting this observer into the memory. That's when the obsession began. I spent the next 3 days doing nothing but watching those tapes. I called in sick to work. I didn't eat, I barely slept. I sat in my darkened apartment, the only light coming from the glowing screen of the old TV, and I watched. Every single tape was the same. A normal family event, a wedding, a graduation, a trip to a theme park. And in every single one the glitch would happen. And every single time the thing would be there and it was getting closer. On a tape of a trip to the zoo, it was a dark shape behind the glass of the reptile house. On a tape of a school play, it was a tall, thin figure standing in the wings of the stage. With each appearance it became more defined. The vague octopus-like shadow resolved into a distinct silhouette. The silhouette grew limbs, a torso, a head. It was impossibly tall and thin, its limbs too long, its joints bending at unnatural angles. It was like a spider and a man had been melted together in the dark. It never moved. It never interacted with the family. It just watched. A silent, parasitic passenger on their memories. I felt like I was losing my mind. Was I just seeing things? Was the man who gave me the tape some kind of weird indie filmmaker who made found footage horror? But it all felt too real. The family, their lives, it was authentic. The creature was the only thing that felt wrong. I got to the last tape in the box. It was older than the others, the quality much worse. The timestamp read 1995. The day began in a sterile, white hospital room. A tired-looking woman in a hospital bed. A man who I recognise as a younger version of the father from the other tapes, holding a small, swaddled bundle. It was the birth of the man who had given me the box. His first moments of life captured on grainy magnetic tape. I braced myself. I stared at the screen, my knuckles white, waiting for the inevitable glitch, waiting to see where the creature would appear this time. In the corner of the room, in the reflection of a window. But the tape played on. The baby cried. The mother smiled, exhausted but happy. The father cooed. The camera zoomed in on the baby's tiny, wrinkled face. It played perfectly from start to finish. No glitches, no static, no creature. The tape ended, the screen dissolving into a blank, blue void. A wave of immense, shuddering relief washed over me. I laughed a choked, hysterical sound. It was over. The last tape was clean. It was just a weird recurring flaw in the other tapes. A magnetic anomaly. My brain had filled in the blanks, created a monster out of nothing. I was an idiot. A sleep-deprived, paranoid idiot. I leaned forward and turned off the VCR. The TV screen went black, and I saw it. It wasn't in a reflection. It wasn't a trick of the light. It was in the room, with me. The darkness behind the television, in the corner where the shadows were deepest, was wrong. It was a patch of absolute black, a void that seemed to drink the faint light from the street lamp outside, and from that void 2 points of light ignited, 2 giant crimson, self-luminous eyes. They weren't looking at the TV, they were looking at me. I could see its shape now, fully formed, no longer a grainy image on a screen. It was pressed against the wall in the ceiling, its long, spindly limbs played out like a monstrous spider. Its body was a shifting mass of shadows, but those eyes were solid and real and filled with an ancient, terrifying intelligence. I don't think I screamed. I think the sound was trapped in my throat, a solid ball of pure terror. I scrambled backward, falling out of my chair, and crab-walked across the floor until my back hit the opposite wall. I fumbled for the lamp on my end table, my fingers feeling like useless, clumsy sausages. I found the switch and flicked it. The room was flooded with light, and the corner was empty. The TV was just a TV. The shadows were just shadows. It was gone. But it had been there. I spent the rest of the night huddled in my lit kitchen, clutching a butcher knife, jumping at every creak and groan of the old building. Sleep was a country I could no longer visit. The next morning, driven desperate by a need for answers, I decided to go back to the man's house. I had to know, I had to ask him what he'd put me through. I gathered up the tapes, put them back in their box and drove over to his neighbourhood. When I pulled onto his street, I saw the police cars. Yellow tape was cordoning off his house. My heart sank into my stomach. I parked down the street and walked closer, trying to look like a curious neighbour. A small group of actual neighbours were gathered on the sidewalk, speaking in hushed, morbid tones. "Just found him this morning," an elderly woman was saying. "Terrible. So young. What happened?" another neighbour asked. The woman lowered her voice, but I was close enough to hear her. "They're not saying much, but my My cousin's son is one of the officers on scene. He said it was the strangest thing he's ever seen. The man was just sitting in his chair. No signs of a struggle, but, he said, well, the top of his skull was gone and his brain, it was missing. I didn't hear anything else. The words hit me like a physical blow. His brain was missing. The world tilted on its axis. I turned and stumbled back to my car, the box of tapes feeling like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I got home, my mind a blank roar of static. I needed to get rid of them, burn them, throw them in a river. I brought the box inside, and as I was about to just dump the contents into a trash bag, my fingers brushed against a piece of paper at the very bottom. Hidden beneath the last cassette. I hadn't noticed it before. It was a small, folded note. The handwriting was shaky, erratic, the writing of a man on the edge of utter collapse. I unfolded it. It only had a few words. I am sorry. It promised me it would leave me alone. And in that moment I understood everything. He passed it to me, and now I don't know what to do. Do I live with this thing, this silent observer waiting for it to get hungry? Or do I find another person, another stranger, and hand them a box of old tapes? Do I save myself by damning someone else just like he did? But it hadn't saved him. The creature had lied. It had moved on to me, and then it had gone back to collect its final payment from him. His brain. Maybe that's what it eats. I don't know. All I know is that I'm so tired, but I'm terrified to go to sleep. Very nice. 4 pretty solid stories, and we've ended on a good one. Good one there. Nice and scared, despite me recording this in the middle of the day. But yeah, that is going to do it for tonight's video, everybody. I really hope you did enjoy these stories. If you did, and you are able to, then please give this video a like. And if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. But until the next video, everybody,